محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. So who remembers what was the last topic that we discussed? What is that? The sweat. No, that was before the salah. Is that why you're still sitting here?
That's why he's sweating.
What was the last class that we had? Who remembers?
It was like 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, yes. So what was it that we discussed in the last class? Who's taking notes? Yes.
There are 4 acts of Jahiliyyah.
What are the 4 acts of Jahiliyyah?
Boasting social status.
Boasting of social status. Can anyone give me an example of someone boasting of social status? Yes.
Yes, like when they get like a new car, they just keep like posting on Facebook and putting like pictures of it.
Okay. Well, boasting also kind of implies putting somebody else down. So,
Their car is better than someone else's.
their car is better than somebody else's. So someone says, hey, look at my house and look at yours. Kind of like that. Look at my car and look at yours. Look at my clothes and look at yours. That kind of stuff.
Is it like comparing something?
What is that?
Comparing?
Comparing and boasting, thinking that because of this a person is more beloved to Allah, he's more blessed because of having more of this dunya. But we know that having more of this dunya is not a sign of the love of Allah. Okay? How many of you know about capitalism? How many of you heard this word before? Capitalism. Who can tell me what this means? You forgot. What does capitalism mean? Yes. Huh? You control everything? No. Yes.
It's a social system based on individuals' rights.
It's a social system based on individual rights. Okay. Did you learn this in the Air Force base? No, right? Kind of.
More college, but they talk about it.
They talk about it. There's a reason why they talk about it. Because this definition is a skewed definition. Okay? Because, that's a different discussion, but capitalism basically means is that you as an individual should strive as hard as you can by cutting whoever you need to cut out of your way so that you can reach success. Okay? So you see, we have in America, we have the 1% who have 99% of the wealth. Right? Or 90% of the wealth is controlled by 1%. And then the rest of the 99% have 10% of the wealth. Do you think that's fair? It's not really fair, right? But then these people, they will do whatever they want to do in order to make more money. Right? So for example, if you remember that the BP had a huge oil spill. BP, the company, they had a well under the Gulf which blew, right? And this thing, it chewed out so many millions of gallons of oil into the ocean that washed up and destroyed much of the economies of the shore towns in Louisiana and Texas and Florida and all of that stuff. And you know what? They were being warned. They had warnings that there's a problem and our safety systems are not working. They said, well, don't worry about it. As long as it's working, they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Okay? Keep making money. And they were making lots and lots of money. And then this thing that happened, right? So this is that example. So capitalism actually comes from the ideas of some early thinkers from the Europeans. And amongst them was John Calvin. Who has heard this name before? John Calvin.
Calvin Coolidge?
No, Calvin Coolidge is much later. He was a president. John Calvin, yes. Can you tell me anything about him? Okay, anyone else? John Calvin? John Calvin, he was a philosopher. Okay, he was a philosopher, and he talked about the idea that if you have more wealth, then this means that you're more beloved to Allah. If you have more wealth, you can hear me well, right? Okay, let's just. This thing is like disturbing me. So John Calvin, he talked about the idea that if you have more wealth, then that means that you are more beloved to God. Okay? So basically what this is a very wrong idea, and it's a very dangerous idea. Why? Because let's say I get this idea and I say, you know what, I'm going to go and rob a bank. And as a result, tomorrow I would be a millionaire. And if I am a millionaire, that means I'm more beloved by God. I'm going to go and sell drugs. Okay? And when I get very rich, that means that I'm more beloved by God, which basically puts the idea in people's head that in order to make money, do whatever you want to do. Do whatever you want to do, right? And this is an idea which basically capitalism is based on. Okay? And this is an idea that destroys the society. This is an idea that destroys the society, where it creates greed in the people. It creates greed in the people until they reach a level where they're just busy making money and they don't even remember that the original idea was to be more beloved by God. Although that was wrong too, but they forget even that, and now it's all about money, right? So for example, you have, cutthroat decisions, like for example, Atlantic City, that recently they raised their taxes, right? How much percent taxes did they raise? 33%. 33%, right? 37%. Some people more, some people a little bit less, right? Do you know why they raised the taxes? Yeah.
Casinos closed down.
Casinos closed down, so they want to fix the city. But what the real game behind it is that by raising taxes, what you do is that you push the poor people out.
Yeah.
Okay? So the poor people who are in the city, their taxes increase. So before for example, their house was paid off, they were paying maybe, $400, $300 a month in taxes. But now all of a sudden, their taxes go up to like $600. Okay? Then after a little while, it goes up to $900, right? So basically, you own a house, but you're still paying rent. You own a house, but you're still paying rent. So what they do is that they say, you know what, it's not worth living here. So they sell their house and they leave the city. Okay? And the idea behind it is by increasing taxes, what you do is that you get the rich white people to move in. Okay? And that's how you fix the city. Okay? That's how you fix the city, by pushing the poor people out, pushing the minorities out. The rich white people come in, where to them, they throw away $1,000. To them it doesn't matter, right? They throw that away. They take car washes for like $112 and stuff like that. So they come in and the city gets fixed to them, right? So that idea is a very dangerous. So that was talking from boasting about social status. So what was another thing that is a sign of Jahiliyyah?
Making fun of
Making fun of someone based on their tribe or ethnicity, right? So someone, for example, saying, oh, you're Pakistani, you suck, or this and that, or you're a Bengali, or you are, black, or you're, whatever it could be, making fun of someone's tribe, someone's ethnicity, someone's identity, is a sign of Jahiliyyah. And we have a famous hadith where one of the companions, he asked another companion to get up and give him his spot. Get up and give him his spot. So the companion refused. He said, I'm not going to give you my spot. Remember the rule in Islam, right? Can an older man come to you and say, can you please move from here? I'm going to sit here.
No.
Can the imam come and do that to you?
No.
Yes, he can. If the imam comes and there's a reason, for example, there's one spot which is basically right behind the imam, right? That spot, what I will do is that I will move someone, but I will move them to another spot in the first line. It wouldn't be fair that I take them out of the first line and send them to the back. The reason why that is because if I have to step out, for example, I break my wudu. For example, I became unconscious during the salah. I died during the salah. Something like that happens. So whoever is the one that's behind me should be someone who is capable of leading the salah and continuing the salah. Okay? So that's why I'll put someone there who I know can recite Quran okay. I will put someone there who I know that he knows that he should continue. Because normally what people would do is that if they see the Imam leaving, they're going to leave too. Right? But actually, we have the famous incident where Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anh, when he was stabbed, can you imagine someone comes and stabs the Imam in front of the whole masjid, and the salah continued. He pulled Abdurrahman ibn Auf up to continue and finish the salah, and he sat down with him and finished his salah. Okay, even in the case of stabbing. And you know what stabbing Umar is like, right? Stabbing Umar is like shooting the president. Okay, Umar radiallahu anh at that time was the most powerful man on earth. Right? So stabbing Umar is like shooting the president. That happened, and they still continued and finished their salah. Okay, a few people went after that guy. The rest of the people, they stayed in their salah. Okay, and this is also, by the way, the same thing that sometimes it happens that someone faints in the salah. Okay, so everyone doesn't have to break the salah, but if you feel that no one is taking care of this issue, then you go and break your salah. And you go and take care of that issue, and then you come back. Islam is a practical religion. Islam is a pragmatic religion. It doesn't say, let the man die and you finish your salah. No. If someone is taking care of it, then yes, you finish your salah. But if no one is taking care of it, then you go, right? You know, sometimes there's like a boom or something, and a thought comes to me that, you know, maybe someday someone's gonna come through this window, like a car or something like that, right? So if you know, may Allah protect us, you know, by accident it can happen, something like that. It's glass. Someone might see that, you know what, maybe this is a parking spot in the masjid. So someone might come and some accident might happen. So in that case, you know, whoever is the closest person should go and take care of it. Whoever is the closest person should go and take care of it. The rest of the people should continue the salah. Okay, what was the third thing that is from Jahiliyyah?
Believe in horoscope.
Huh?
Yeah.
Believe in horoscope.
Believing in horoscopes, believing in, stars, astrology, right? What is astrology? You know, brothers on that side, would you like to come closer? I don't bite. I do have these claws that come out when I want them to, right? But I normally don't hurt people with them, right? I save them for other mutants. So astrology is, for example, things like believing that, you know what, my star is surrounded by other stars, which means that these are enemies surrounding and killing him or something like that. This is a belief in the zodiac, right, or the horoscope, which, you know, they have it in newspapers, they have it in TV, you know, in the morning shows, that if you're Libra, don't go out today, if you're Capricorn, don't start a new business, right? Believing in this is a very severe type of sin. Believing in this is kufr. Believing in this is kufr, and knowing about it, reading about it, keeping up with it, even just out of curiosity, is a very severe type of sin. And a person who reads it just out of curiosity, his ibadah is not accepted for 40 days. Okay? And can you imagine if in those 40 days this man dies? That would be a very, very severe thing. Okay? So we don't believe in that. What's the fourth thing?
Wailing over death.
Wailing over the dead. That's the real meat here. Wailing over the dead. Who can give me an example of how wailing is done? So wailing is to cry with noise. Is to cry with noise, right? Sometimes someone cries and they're naturally crying, and all you hear is, you know, maybe you hear the sound of their breath. Maybe you hear the sound coming from their chest as they're trying to suppress their chest, right? But some people, they make noise. You know how kids cry? Kids basically wail. Okay? So the kids, when they cry, they scream with it too. Okay? That type of crying over the dead is haram, is a very severe type of sin, and as the Prophet said, that this is a sign of Jahiliyyah. This is a sign of Jahiliyyah. So yes, last class, we basically talked about how to grieve over the dead and how not to grieve over the dead. Now let me ask you this question. For how many weeks for how many weeks can you change your routine when someone that you love, someone near to you, died?
For the wife or like, or,
For everyone, generally for everyone.
3 days.
3 days.
3 days, right? So can you stay home from work for 7 days?
No.
No, right? Unless there is something that needs to be done. Like for example, let's say a husband who's a father, his wife dies. Okay? So for him to stay home is a different case, which is that he needs to take care of the kids and maybe he doesn't have a alternative solution yet. Right? That's a different case. But just to kind of live the grief and sadness and change the routine, this is not allowed for more than 3 days. This is not allowed for more than 3 days. And we have cases where Habiba radiallahu anha, the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, her father died, and after 3 days, she came out to other ladies in public, wearing perfume. Okay? And she said, I did this because the Prophet said that there is no grieving for more than 3 days except for a lady who's grieving her husband. Okay? How long is a lady allowed to grieve for her husband who died?
4 months. 4 months.
4 months and 4 months and 10 days. 4 months and 10 days. But even in that, the scholar said that in those 4 months and 10 days, she should not be living crying all the time and something like that. Because if someone is crying non-stop for 40 days, for 30 days, right? What does it mean? What it means is that they're not accepting the qadr of Allah. Okay? So obviously when you lose someone, you cry for 1 day, you cry for 2 days, you cry for 3 days, but eventually you have to put in your head that, you know what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who gave us that person, and Allah took him back. Crying will not bring him back. Okay? So even although, because she lost her partner who was very close to her, so it's natural that she might cry more than 3 days, but she should not continue to cry for 4 months and 10 days. Okay? But what is she not allowed to do when her husband dies for 4 months and 10 days? Who can tell us? Yes.
Go outside with his makeup. Go outside with his makeup.
She cannot go outside. Okay, we'll discuss that afterwards. What else? What is that? Makeup? Yeah, she cannot do makeup. Okay, what else?
To use a perfume or any colorful dress.
Not to use perfume or wear colorful dress. Okay, what else?
And get married.
Definitely she cannot get married, yes. Actually, all of these things which she's not allowed to do is because that she's not supposed to get married. Okay? If she wears makeup, if she wears perfume, if she wears colorful dress, if she looks good, any of these things, if she goes out, if she talks to men that are not her mahram, what will happen is that somebody might want to marry her. Somebody might want to marry her. And she might want to marry someone else well. And if this happens before 4 months and 10 days, then there's a major risk that will happen. There's a major problem that could happen. Number one is that her husband had a lot of rights over her. And it's not appropriate that within a month she's gone. It's not appropriate. So the time that Allah has said is 4 months and 10 days. Secondly, the husband's family, how will they feel if their son died and the next week his wife gets married to another man? Okay, it's not appropriate. So the time once again has been set for 4 months and 10 days. And thirdly is that if she happened to be pregnant when her husband died, right, but it was not known yet, maybe it was just the beginning, maybe it just happened right at the end, so there is a time of 4 months and 10 days, which is more than enough time for her to clearly know whether there is something or not. Okay, because the mixing of lineage is a very serious thing in Islam. And by the way, what happens if she is pregnant? If she is pregnant, then her iddah, then her waiting period is not 4 months and 10 days, but it is until she actually delivers the baby. Okay, it is extended. It is extended until she delivers the baby. Is it allowed for someone to propose to a lady while she is in her waiting period?
No.
It is not allowed. is there any like loop, any indirect way or anything like that allowed?
No.
There is, which is basically, but let's say there's someone who, you know, she's like a well respected, well known lady that many men want to marry. So someone says, you know what, if I wait until 4 months and 10 days, you know, I might lose her. This is like hot pizza, you know, it's gonna go fast. So, hot cake, right? Not literally, we're just talking figuratively, right? So what is allowed to do is, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قَوْلٌ مَعْرُوفٌ. Okay, a good word. So for example, he might send her a message, for example, something like, whoever gets married to you would be a lucky man. Meaning, who wants to be that lucky man? I want to be that lucky man, right? So that is the most that it is allowed to say, so that, you know, when it is time that she is looking for another husband, then she would remember that, you know, somebody else said this too. So, and by the way, another thing here is that we're talking about this and we're thinking like, you know, who's going to get married to a widow lady after 4 months and 10 days? Actually, the Sahaba, they had a culture. The Sahaba, they had a culture where they would not leave any man or any woman of adult marriageable age without being married. Okay? So immediately they would get married. So for example, the wife of Ja'far was Asma binti Umais. When Ja'far, who was a cousin of the Prophet, when he died, who married her? Who knows? Abu Bakr married her. Okay, after Ja'far died, after her waiting period was over, Abu Bakr died. And actually, when Abu Bakr radiallahu anh died, she was actually having a baby. And he had told her that, I think that this is going to be a girl. Okay, I think that this is going to be a girl, and it was a girl. Then Abu Bakr died, and this lady is still, you know, she's not very old right now. So who marries her? Who knows? Ali radiallahu anh marries her. Ali radiallahu anh married her, right? So think about that. And there are many, many cases like that. There are many, many cases like that. For example, Zainab radiallahu anha, she was married to Zayd, right? Then they were divorced, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala married her to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Habiba, the daughter of Abu Sufyan radiallahu anha, when she was in Abyssinia, her husband died, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he sent her a marriage, a request for marriage, and he sent it to Najashi. Okay, and the Najashi, he acted as her wali and performed the nikah and gave the mahar as a gift. He paid the mahar for the Prophet, and he sent her back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, and by the way, you know, you want to know something interesting, is that many times the non-Muslims or people who attack Islam, they say the Prophet ﷺ got married too many times. Okay? In the case of Habiba, the Prophet ﷺ had not seen this lady for many years. He had not seen this lady for many, many years. Okay? The only reason why the Prophet got married to her is what? Is because her father was Abu Sufyan. And the Arabs, they have a culture that if you have a problem with someone and you're fighting with them, but somehow he marries one of your daughters, then you stop fighting them. Okay? So the day that Abu Sufyan's daughter got married to the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Sufyan never attacked the Muslims again. Okay? Abu Sufyan, the day that he got married, the day that the Prophet got married to his daughter, Abu Sufyan never attacked Medina again. You know, because Abu Sufyan was the leader of Mecca. So this was, you know, obviously the Prophet did not say, okay, well, I just got married to you because I want to subdue your father. No, it's not like that. He gave her full rights and lived with her just like he lived with any of the other wives. But at the same time, there was a political reason behind this marriage. So anyways, let's go to today's topic, which is signs of good end and bad ends. When a person dies, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala designates clear signs associated with a person's death, revealing or indicating his status after death. Some of these signs are clear indications of a good end. Dying with any of them constitutes a good tiding for the deceased. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant this to us out of His mercy. And there are also bad signs that if a person dies, and this is bad news for the person who died. So since we don't have too much time, inshallah, let's begin one after another. So number one, the first sign, or one of the signs, and probably one of the most well-known signs, is saying the shahada at the time of death. Saying the shahada at the time of death. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Man kana akhira kalamihi la ilaha illallah dakhala al-jannah." Okay, whoever's last words are la ilaha illallah, he will enter Jannah. Okay. Also, the Prophet ﷺ said, "No soul dies while testifying that there is no true God except Allah, and that I am Allah's messenger." Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. With that issuing from a believing heart, but Allah will forgive him. So meaning that this hadith explains the first hadith, right? Now, Fir'aun, before he died, what did he say? Fir'aun said, "I believe in the Lord of Musa and Harun." Right? He said, "I believe in the Lord of Musa and Harun," but this was not accepted from him because he was not sincere. He was not a believing heart. So the condition is that the heart must be a believing heart. The heart must be a believing heart. And there are many hadith like that. For example, there's an interesting hadith that Jabir radiallahu anhu reported that after the passing of Allah's messenger, Umar radiallahu anhu observed that Talha ibn Ubaidillah was sad. He was too sad. Something was strange. So he asked him, "What's wrong with you, O Abu Muhammad? So you appear to be disheveled and covered with dust since the passing of Allah's messenger. Is it because you have a problem with Abu Bakr being the Khalifa?" He said, "No, may Allah forbid." He said, "No, astaghfirullah, no, I don't have a problem with Abu Bakr." And he praised Abu Bakr. Then he explained, he said, "It is just that I heard from the Prophet ﷺ a hadith, and nothing stopped me from asking him about it except hesitation, until he passed away, and this is the cause of my sadness." So he's saying that I heard the Prophet ﷺ say something, and I needed to ask him an explanation of this, but I didn't get a chance to. I was just hesitating, and the Prophet died. And now I don't know the answer to that question that I wanted to ask. And what was it that the Prophet said? The Prophet said, "Verily, I know a statement that no person says at the time of his death, but his complexion shines by it." Meaning he starts to shine by it. Allah removes his distress. It provides his soul with security as it departs from his body, and it will be a light in his record on the day of judgment. So the Prophet said, "I know a statement that if a person says this, he will be removed from distress, he will shine, it will be a light in his record on the day of judgment," and all of these things. But he didn't mention what the statement was. So Talha had heard the story, and he had heard the statement, and he was wanting to ask, "Ya Rasulullah, what is that statement that will make a person do this?" So now the Prophet passed away, and he's really upset that he didn't get a chance to ask him this. So that's why Umar said, "What's wrong?" He said, "Because I heard this." So Umar said, "I know what it is. I know what it is." So Talha said, "Pray, Alhamdulillah, what is it?" Alhamdulillah that you know it. What is it? It's kind of like, tell me before you die too. I want to know this, right? So what is it? So he replied, he said, "Do you know a statement greater than that which he prompted his uncle at his death? La ilaha illallah." He said, what could it be? What could it be except the statement that he was trying to have his uncle say at the time of his death, which is La ilaha illallah. He said, that's the statement. So Talha said, "You spoke the truth, by Allah, this is it." Okay, so someone who says the shahada at the time of his death is a very, very great blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever says this as the last statement, he will enter Jannah. And there's a Sheikh Abdul Bari Yahya. He mentioned a story about his father, that one day after 9/11, they were closing up the masjid after Salat al-Isha, and his father was in the front locking the masjid, and a car drove by and shot at the masjid, and his father got shot. Okay? He said, I was in the back, I came around and I saw that my father was on the floor and he had been shot. So he said, I held him in my hands and I said, my father, say La ilaha illallah. And he said, La ilaha illallah. And then he said, my father, whatever they ask you, don't say anything now. The ambulance is going to come, they're going to say, what's your name, where do you live? Don't answer anything. Because if you die, then you have already said La ilaha illallah, don't say anything. And that's what he did. They came, they said, what's your name? You know, he was still alive for a little bit. What's your name? What's your address? He did not answer anything. He did not answer anything, and he died. He died, and he said that I testified that my father said this as the last words that came out of his mouth. And subhanAllah, this is not something that comes to everyone. This is not something that comes to everyone. This is a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If a person practices saying it all his life, if he's not acting upon it, he's not believing in it, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might make him forget at the time of death, right? And then he said another thing about his father. He said that when my father died, we realized that the masjid's bathrooms were not clean anymore. Meaning, he said that someone who had the key to the masjid used to go on his way to work, open the masjid at like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock when no one is there, and he used to go and he used to clean the masjid's bathroom and lock, and no one knew who it was. The only thing they knew is that the masjid's bathroom, someone comes and cleans them. He said, when my father died, we realized that the masjid's bathrooms are not being cleaned anymore. That's when we found out that it was my father doing it. So it is no surprise that he gets a death like that. Coming out of the masjid, right? Actually, we'll talk about some of the other signs, that he had multiple signs. He had multiple signs that coming out of the masjid, being shot for being a Muslim, and saying La ilaha illallah, right? All of these things are very great signs that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept him as a shaheed. Number 2, the second sign is the forehead sweating. Okay, so actually this is a good sign. This is a good sign, and the Prophet ﷺ had sweat on his forehead when he died. Okay, he had forehead sweat on his forehead, and the Prophet ﷺ, on visiting a sick person, Burayda bin al-Khasib, he found this person at the verge of death and noticed that his forehead was covered with sweat. So he said, Allahu Akbar. I heard Rasulullah ﷺ say, a believer dies with a sweating forehead. A believer dies with a sweating forehead. Okay, so if you see someone who was sweating at the time of his death from his forehead, then this is a good sign. This is a good sign, and the Prophet ﷺ had this as well. Also, another good sign is to die on a Friday. To die on a Friday, because Friday is a blessed day. The Prophet ﷺ said, any Muslim who dies on the day or night of Jum'ah is protected by Allah from the tribulations of the grave. Okay, he's protected by Allah from the tribulations of the grave. So what is the day of Jum'ah and what is the night of Jum'ah? Who can tell us? What is the night of Jum'ah? Yes.
Thursday
Okay, you have to raise your hand. Okay, yes.
Maghrib of Thursday. That's no matter.
Right. So in the Islamic calendar, the night precedes the day. The night comes first and the day comes next, right? That's why on the first of Ramadan, we pray Taraweeh the night before we fast. Okay? Because the Ramadan begins at Maghrib time. That's why we pray Taraweeh at that time. The next sign is martyrdom on the battlefield. The Prophet ﷺ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا. Do not think of those who were killed in the way of Allah as dead. بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ. No, they are alive with their Lord and they are sustained by Him. Okay, and this they are very famous. There are many ahadith about that. Also, the Prophet ﷺ said, a shaheed is awarded 7 favors by Allah. A shaheed, someone who dies, fi sabilillah, he is awarded 7 favors by Allah. Number 1, he's forgiven with the first gush of his blood. The first gush of his blood, he's forgiven by Allah. Number 2, when he's hit with this mortal blow, whether it's a bullet or it's a sword or whatever it is, he's shown his place in Jannah. Okay, and that's why that's why it is common that someone who dies in circumstances which are circumstances of dying for the sake of Allah, what do you see? You see a smile on their face. You see their teeth. Okay, and I've seen many pictures of people at the time of their death, true people who are fighting for the sake of Allah, that their face has a smile. And basically this hadith explains that some of the scholars say that when whatever is going to kill them, whether it's a bullet or something, when it hits them, in that same second, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows them their place in Jannah. And when they see that place in Jannah, they smile, and boom, that's the time of death. So that smile is frozen on their face. Okay, so he's forgiven with the first gush of blood. He's shown his place in Jannah. He's protected from the torment, from the punishment of the grave. He's saved from the great fear on the Day of Judgment. Right? The Prophet said that on the Day of Judgment, people will be afraid, but the shuhada will not be afraid. Okay, and he said, that's the next hadith actually. So he will be saved from the fear on the Day of Judgment. He will be adorned with the adornments of Iman. He will be married to Hurul Ain, and he will be allowed to intercede for 70 of his relatives. Subhanallah. He will be allowed to intercede for 70 of his relatives. One of the companions, he reported, a man asked the Prophet ﷺ, O Messenger of Allah, why is it that all the believers are tried in their graves except shuhada? How come everyone goes through this difficulty in the grave, but the shuhada don't? So he said that the flashing of the sword over his head was a sufficient trial for him. Okay? Meaning that the fear of battle, when the battle is raging and your life is at stake. So that fear is a fear that if a person goes through that, then he will not face the fear in his grave, and he will not face the fear on the Day of Judgment. Right? Now, who is a shaheed? Who is fighting for the sake of Allah? Okay? Are the people who are fighting in ISIS fighting for the sake of Allah? Who are the ones who are fighting for the sake of Allah? So there are two basically main ways where a person is in this type of situation. Number 1 is defensive jihad. Okay, where when an army is attacking, an enemy is attacking the Muslim or his land or his family because he is Muslim. That's all. Because he is Muslim, and this person dies in that way. This person dies fi sabilillah. Okay, so for example, those people who are sincerely fighting in Palestine for the sake of Allah, because there are many Palestinis, right, that are basically just like we are Pakistani, they are Palestinian, right? Just like some are Egyptian, they are Palestinians. So some of them, they don't pray, right? They don't really fast, but they are fighting the Israelis, right? So those people, they will die upon whatever their intention is. But those who are truly believers and they're defending this land because this is a holy land and all of that, those are the people who will be in this category, right? And this applies to anywhere else. The second type, and we have examples, for example, the Battle of Badr, the Battle of Uhud, right? The Battle of Ahzab in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Then the second type is the offensive jihad, where the Muslim army, when they're in stable conditions and they're defended internally, then they send out armies to spread Islam to other lands. Okay, so for example, the Prophet ﷺ, he praised the army that will conquer Constantinople, okay, which is Istanbul today, right? The Prophet said that وَلَنِعْمَ الْجَيْشُ جَيْشُهَا, right? What a great army that will be وَلَنِعْمَ الْأَمِيرُ أَمِيرُهَا. And what a great Amir would be the Amir of this. Right? And that's why Sultan Muhammad al-Fatih, right? From a child, he was growing up to conquer the city. He was training because he had heard this hadith. His teacher had taught him that you were going to be that Amir who's going to conquer the city, right? And this took how many years? It took about 700 years, 800 years after the Prophet ﷺ to conquer the city, right? And there were multiple attempts beforehand, right? And the Prophet ﷺ has said that the Amir of this will be, his name will be the name of a prophet. His name will be the name of a prophet. So an earlier Khalifa, in the time of the Umayyads, his name was Hisham, I think it was Hisham bin Abdul Malik or someone else. His son's name was Sulaiman. Okay? And he sent Sulaiman with an army, thinking that, hey, my son's name is Sulaiman, maybe he's the Emir that's going to open. Right? However, he was not successful in that. And also Yazid ibn Muawiyah, the son of Muawiyah, he also led an army to try to conquer Constantinople. And in that army was the great Sahabi Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, right? And he was killed there, and he's a shaheed. And until today, we know, may Allah accept him as a shaheed. So then turns out, who is the Emir? Actually, it's Sultan Muhammad al-Fatih. Does he have the name of a prophet? Yes, his name is Muhammad, right? So he's the one who happens to be this. And how many of you were here when we had a khutbah about that? Huh? There was a movie too, but we also had a khutbah. So what the Romans had done is that they had, like, for example, imagine a bay, right? So the way to bring in the army was through the bay, through the ships. So what they had done is that they had tied a chain in that bay. So any ship that would come, and this was a thick chain, and whenever their ships would come, they would lower the chain. So the ship would come. Whenever that's done, they close the chain. So any ship that comes, it will rip the ship apart. Okay, so no ships could get in. So what Sultan Muhammad al-Fatih did is that they went around the back where there were mountains, and they cut trees, and they put animal fat on them as oil, as a lubricant, and they put the ships on these tracks, and they dragged them over the mountain and on the other side of the chain. Okay, and that was one of the killer blows, basically. That once the army entered, that was their main defense. Their main defense was not to let the army get close. They had big walls and they had this chain, right? So he did two things. Number one, he got the ships across by the mountain, right? And what did he do with the wall? Yes.
He used the gunpowder.
He used gunpowder, but more than gunpowder, he built the biggest cannon ever. He built a cannon just for this wall. Okay? This wall was so thick, actually that wall is still there until today. If you go to Istanbul, that wall is still there. I've seen it, I have pictures of it, right? That wall is maybe
6 feet.
how many what?
More than that. Almost like a 5-story building.
Maybe it's from there all the way up to like the first saf here, right? Like 3 safs, right? That's how thick that wall is. So he built a special cannon, and there was one guy who knew how to make cannons. So the Romans had arrested him and kept him in prison because they knew that he could build a cannon that could break this wall. Okay? So what they did is that they dug a tunnel underneath that opened into the cell of this prisoner. And they broke him out of there, and then he built for them a cannon, and with this cannon they shot constantly, and they broke that wall. So that is dying in the way of Allah. Now the good news is that who can get me a napkin? Just Kareem will be okay. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Man sa'ala Allahu ash-shahada bi-sidqin." He who sincerely asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for shahada, sincerely asks Allah for shahada, Allah will grant him the level of martyrs even if he dies in bed. Okay, so the reason why this hadith is important is that we may not, we're living in America, living where we are in the circumstances, we may not be in a situation where we will die for the sake of Allah. You know, Allah knows the future. But the Prophet said, if you sincerely ask Allah for shahada, you really seriously want this status, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give that person the status of the martyr even if he dies in bed. Okay? But the key is to be sincere. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us all the ranks of the shuhada. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to die upon all of these signs that we're going to talk about. The next sign is to die in a plague. In a plague, right? So for example, if somebody died from Ebola, would he be shaheed?
Yes.
He would be shaheed. Okay, so it's not something to be too scared of, right? I mean,
That's only for the Muslims.
that's it's only for the Muslims.
Yeah.
Yes, it's only for the Muslims. Actually, the Prophet ﷺ said that the plague is a form of punishment from Allah. The plague is a form of punishment of Allah, which Allah used to afflict upon whomever He willed. Then Allah made it a mercy for the believers. Thus, whoever is in a land where a plague strikes and remains in his town patiently, knowing that nothing will happen to him except as Allah has decreed, then he will be granted a reward similar to that of a shaheed. Okay, so now here are a few key things, right? The key thing is, number one, is that a person should be a believer. A person should be a believer. Number two is that he was in a town, so what should he do if the plague breaks out in his town? He should remain there and be patient. Okay? So if someone happens to be in, for example, Sierra Leone, where Ebola hit hard, right? And you are a Muslim, then you should not try to get a flight and get out. Because why? If you get out of there, you might expose other people to this as well. Okay? So you stay there. The Prophet ﷺ said if the plague hits a town, you can't find one? Actually, I need the other one. Can you get me one from?
There's no.
They're right there, right there. So if a plague, the Prophet said that if a plague hits a town, right, any kind of this epidemic type of disease which spreads like that, so whoever is in that town should remain in that town, and whoever is outside of that town should not enter that town. Okay, this is the rule. So whatever it happens to be, then you wait for the qadr of Allah. You wait for the qadr of Allah. If Allah wishes, you might die. If Allah wishes, you will live. Can someone live through a plague? Can someone survive a plague? Huh? Yes. Huh? If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants, even the medical science explain that sometimes there's a virus that is killing people, for example, the Ebola virus. But not everyone died that got Ebola. And some people were in the presence of Ebola, but they didn't get Ebola. Okay? Why? Because sometimes you may be immune to that virus. Meaning this, your body knows how to kill this virus while somebody else's body doesn't. Okay? Basically the way it works is that if your immune system is weak, then the virus wins. If your immune system is strong, then your body wins. Okay? But obviously this is in the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you want to know something interesting? Who knows where Amazon forest is? Where is the Amazon forest? South America, in Brazil. Who lives in Amazon forest? Animals.
No.
Yes.
Native tribe people?
The native tribes people, right? People live there, and they have been living there for thousands of years, right? And they have been untouched by the civilization outside. They still don't have metal. They don't have like axes or swords. They don't have metal tools. They just have wood, arrows, huh?
They have no clothes.
They have no clothes either. They have no clothes either, right? So they live there. Now the government of Brazil, where Amazon forest is, has forbidden people, because people before what they wanted to do, they said, hey, we want to go see these people. So they pack up their, their iPhone and their camera and their, their fancy, Western stuff, and going camping in the Amazon to see these people, right? But the government of Brazil has forbidden people to do that. It's illegal. Why? Because on our bodies we have viruses that these people are not exposed to. Okay? And when we meet them, that virus will get on them and it will kill most of them. Okay? So actually, who knows about the bubonic plague? Everyone who goes to high school should know about bubonic plague, the Black Death, right? So the Black Death is actually here right now. That virus is on our bodies right now, but we are actually the descendants of those who were immune to this. Okay? So actually this is still here, but we don't die from it anymore. That's why when the flu season comes, what do? They give you a flu vaccine. What do they give you in the flu vaccine? They actually give you the thing that the flu virus, they give it to you in the vaccine. They give you the flu virus itself. But they make it weak. They make it really weak and they give it to your body. So your body, when it's strong, it kills it. If you ever go to get a flu virus and you have a fever, they will not give it to you. Because right now your body is already weak. Okay? So they give you that virus, your body learns to kill it. Our body has a system that if it kills a virus once, it can always kill it. If it kills a virus once, it can always kill it. They are memory cells, which every time someone comes in, they're like, do we know this guy or no? Yes, we know him. We need to kill him. Kill him, right? So, but if a new guy comes in, while the body is trying to figure out, do we need to kill him or not, he kills the body. Okay? So, plague is something which is a good death. So if someone dies in a plague, this is a rahmah from Allah, and a person should be patient about this. On the Day of Judgment, the martyrs and those who died from plague will come together. They will come together, and those people who have died from plague, they will say, we are shuhada. We are shuhada. So the shuhada will say, look at their wounds. If they're similar to those of the martyrs, issuing blood that smells like musk, then they are martyrs. Meaning that the Prophet said that the one who dies shaheed, on the Day of Judgment, his wound will smell like musk. Okay? So the Prophet said in this hadith is that on the Day of Judgment, those who die in plague, their wounds will also smell like musk. Okay? But meaning if they were patient. If they were patient. Now, Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu anh, he died in a plague. Okay? Abu Ubaidah also died in a plague. These are great companions. And Umar, he loved both of them. He loved both of them. And especially he loved Abu Ubaidah. And Abu Ubaidah was the commander of the Muslim armies. But he was in this place and the plague spread over there. So Umar, he sent a letter. Umar sent a letter. And this letter was addressed to Abu Ubaidah. He said, Abu Ubaidah, this is me, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Umar. When you get this letter, do not sit down and start walking. Do not sit down, rather start walking, and do not put this letter down until you come and see me. Okay? So what is he trying to do? He wants to save Abu Ubaidah. He loves Abu Ubaidah so much, he wants to save Abu Ubaidah. So he sent him a letter. He said, don't put this letter down until you come here. So Abu Ubaidah, he replied, Amir al-Mu'mineen, I know what you're trying to do, but I will be patient with the qadr of Allah. And he did not come because the command of the Prophet supersedes the command of Allah. Okay? So he said, he did not obey, and he sent a letter back saying that I will be patient, and he actually died from that plague. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept him as a shaheed. But he's one of the 10 people given the glad tidings of Jannah. Whatever number that is, the next sign of good death is abdominal illness. Okay, someone who had a stomach problem, abdominal area, right? stomach problem, intestinal problem, colon problem, anything like this, which is basically associated with abdominal area, he will be a shaheed. Anyone who dies from this. Okay, the Prophet ﷺ said, he who is killed by a disease in his abdomen will not be tormented in his grave. Okay, will not be tormented in his grave. The next thing is another disease called pleurisy. The pleurisy is a type of disease which is a disease of the lungs, where a person feels extreme pain when he breathes. Okay, when he gets this, and they eventually die from this. So the Prophet ﷺ said, he who dies from pleurisy is a shaheed. He who dies from pleurisy is a shaheed. Also, the next sign is if a person dies defending his property. If a person dies defending his property. The Prophet ﷺ said, if one's property is endangered without right, and one is killed while defending it, he is a shaheed. Is it an abdominal illness?
You think by doing that you're going to die the shaheed? That's what you do.
Okay. Abu Hurairah reported that a man asked the Prophet ﷺ, O Messenger of Allah, what should I do if a man comes to snatch my money? Now hear this. Have you ever heard about cases like this where someone comes to snatch your money? Right? Put a gun on you, say, give me, empty your wallet. Right? Put a knife on you, empty your wallet. So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he said, oh Allah's Messenger, what if someone comes to snatch my money? So the Prophet said, do not give it to him. Do not give it to him. He asked, what if he fought me? He said, then fight him back. He said, what if he killed me? He said, then you will be a shaheed. Then you will be a shaheed. He asked, what if I killed him? What if I killed him? He said, then he will be in the fire. Okay? You will not be in the fire, he will be in the fire because he came to kill you. Also, a man asked the Prophet ﷺ, what should I do if a man comes to take my money? Now before you say, you know what, I'm just going to go and fight the next time someone comes to rob me, listen to this second hadith as well. So he said, what if someone comes to take my money? So he said, ذَكِّرْهُ بِاللَّهِ, remind him of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? He asked, what if he did not remember? What if he doesn't care about Allah? He said, then seek help from the Muslims around you against him. Seek help from the Muslims around you against him. He said, what if there were no Muslims around me? So the Prophet said, فَاسْتَعِنْ عَلَيْهِ السُّلْطَانِ, then seek help from the authority, from whoever the authority is. So who's the authority? Police in this case. He said, what if the authority was not accessible and he was too close to me? The Prophet ﷺ replied, fight then for your money. You will either be among the shaheed in the hereafter or safeguard your money. Or safeguard your money. So basically, what is the lesson here? The lesson here is that if someone dies as a result of a robbery, then he will be shaheed. He will be a shaheed. Now, is it fard upon a person to defend his property?
Yes.
If you have $10 in your pocket and this man wants to kill you over it, is it haram for you to give up that $10 and then call the police later? It's not haram for you. It's not haram for you to give up that $10 or even $100, even $200, even $1,000. Think about your children, your mother, your father, right? They're going to say, you know what? If the man killed him for $510, we would give 7 times this money, save our son, right? So, but if it is an amount where you think that, you know what, I can't give this away. Okay, I can't give this away, then you fight. In that case, even the law here actually allows you that you are allowed to defend yourself. You're allowed to defend yourself. Your property also, right? Your house, right? Your house. You know what happens in Palestine? Israeli settlers, they come with soldiers. This is like a government policy they have. One guy, he calls the police. He shows up at your house. You're a Muslim Palestinian Arab. Comes to your house. He says, hello, yes, what can I do for you? What do you mean? You are in my house. The guy just knocks on your door and says, you are in my house. And the army is with them, and there's nothing you can do except fight or give up the house. Okay? And the Israeli government, as you know, that they do that. Actually, they do that on a regular basis because they want to take up more and more land. They want to take up more and more land. So these people, whoever dies in this, they will be shuhada. Also, the next thing is guarding in Allah's way, guarding in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is in Arabic, it's called ribat. Ribat. What is ribat? Ribat is an army on standby. Okay, so for example, let's say that news comes that Makkah is going to be attacked. Makkah is going to be attacked, for example, right? So the Muslims, they come out and they say, you know what, we're going to go at the sea where the army is expected to land by water, and we're going to wait there and meet the army here, right? In that, if someone dies, then they will be shaheed. Okay? The Prophet ﷺ said, standing guard on the battleground for one day and night is better than fasting the days and praying the nights of an entire month. One day, you're not even fighting, you're just waiting. One day and one night is better than fasting and praying the entire month. And if the guard dies, his good deeds that he used to do continue to accumulate for him, and until Yawm al-Qiyamah, he's provided with provisions from Jannah, and he's saved from the interrogators, the angels in the grave. Okay? The angels in the grave will not come and ask him, because he kind of already paid his price. Also, the next thing is dying while doing a good deed. Okay, this is where actually it comes, which is something which is very common. Dying while doing a good deed. The Prophet ﷺ said that every slave, every abd will be resurrected upon the same thing upon which he died. Okay, the person will be resurrected doing what he was doing when he died. Okay. So Hudayfa radiallahu anh, he reported that he braced Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam to his chest, and the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam told him, he who says La ilaha illallah, seeking by that Allah's face, and his deeds are sealed with it as his last deed, enters Jannah. He who fasts one day, seeking by that Allah's face, and his deeds are sealed with it, enters Jannah. He who gives charity, seeking by Allah's face, is by this Allah's face, and his deeds are sealed with it, enters Jannah. Meaning, whoever was the last thing he was doing was praying, or he was fasting, or he was giving charity. Whatever he was doing as the last thing, and his deeds are sealed with it, meaning that's the last thing he did when he died, then he will enter Jannah.
There is a hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He said, يُبْعَثُ الْمَرْءُ عَلَى مَا
يُبْعَثُ كُلُّ عَبْدٍ عَلَى مَا مَاتَ عَلَيْهِ.
Yes.
I quoted that. I just didn't quote the Arabic. The first one. The Prophet ﷺ also said, when Allah wills good for a servant of his, subhanAllah, when Allah wills good for a servant of his, He purifies him. He directs him to doing a good deed before death, so that those around him are pleased with him. He, subhanahu wa ta'ala, then takes away his life while he's doing it. Okay? So this is by the tawfiq of Allah, for example, that someone was going to Umrah and he died in it. Someone was going to Hajj and he died in it, right? Someone was coming to the masjid and he died in it. Someone was reciting Quran and he died in it. You know, there's actually a funny story that I was in madrasa in Pakistan in the year 2000, right? In 2000 and in beginning months of 2011. I came back to America in the March of 2001. 2001. If I waited a few more months, I would probably not have been able to come back, right? Because what happened after a few months? September came. Then the 11th of September came, right? So I was in Pakistan studying in madrasa for 6 months, and I came back in March. So while we were there, we were sitting in madrasa, we were all reciting Quran. It's daytime, and all of a sudden, earthquake goes on. Earthquake comes, right? So what are you supposed to do if an earthquake comes?
You know that they're gonna go outside.
You go under the table or you go under the door, as they say, but door is not really strong these
You
days.
can't even move.
Huh?
You can't even move
You can't even move.
if it's on.
If the earthquake is there?
If you move,
No, you can move, you can move. What actually they say you're supposed to go outside and get away from buildings, because what happens, the people die in earthquakes by buildings collapsing. Okay?
Go to the level field then.
Huh?
Go to the level field and stay away from the crack.
Go to the level field and stay away from the crack. What crack? Like smoking crack?
You stay in no jiffy.
So you go to a place where basically it is open area. Okay, that nothing is gonna fall on the top, because that's how people die. Okay? And by the way, you know, there are building codes, right? Building code says that the door should be this thick. Okay? The exit should be this wide. Those codes are there to protect people in cases like this. And that's why if there's an earthquake in America, less people will die, as opposed to an earthquake in Bangladesh or in Pakistan. Why? Because in those countries, everybody pays off so that they don't have to follow the code. They don't follow the code, which is actually there, designed that if an earthquake comes, which is expected in this area, then the building will still stand and the people will not die. So people pay someone off, say, hey, just sign it off, man, just sign it off, and then to do the work, and then an earthquake comes and boom, everything comes down, right? So what happened is that I got up from my spot and I started running towards it. Not running, but walking really fast to the door. And a few other kids, they followed me, right? The unfortunate person happens to be me who did it. Then 2, 3 people, others, they did that as well. Then the earthquake stopped, and then we all sat down. Then our teacher reminded us of this. He said, what's wrong with you? You were reciting Quran. You were reciting Quran. If you were to die, what better thing can you ask for? What better thing can you ask for? So he was basically telling us this hadith that if a person dies doing a good deed, that he will be raised. So someone dies reciting Quran, what will he be raised doing? Reciting Quran. What better raising is there for that, right? So a person should continue to do good deeds, and when you would think of doing a bad deed, think about this. What if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for you to die in a little bit? And you are starting this bad deed, right? How long are you going to be engaged in this bad deed? Right? And the death comes, then this will be in that. I have a person, I have a story of a person that he died while committing zina. Person died while committing zina, and when they were washing him, when they were trying to shroud him, this person was in the same state as he was while he was committing zina. Do you understand? I don't want to get into too many details, right?
Yeah.
Meaning that he was active even though he was dead. So on the day of judgment, he will be raised like that. So never commit zina. Drinking alcohol. Someone dies while drinking alcohol. Actually, we're going to talk about those signs of the evil deeds. But you know, before someone feels like doing a bad deed, think about this. What if my death is written in a few minutes and I will die while doing this? So stay away from that. Also, execution by an oppressive ruler. Jabir ibn Abdullah radiallahu anhu reported that Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that Sayyidu Shuhada'i inda Allahi Hamza, the chief of martyrs is Hamza ibn Abdul Muttalib, as well as a man, وَرَجُلٌ قَامَ إِلَى إِمَامٍ جَائِرٍ فَأَمَرَهُ وَنَهَاهُ فَقَتَلَهُ, as well as a man who stands before an unjust ruler, commanding and forbidding him, and the ruler kills him. Okay? Is that Saiful? Saiful? You want to go maybe make wudu? Go ahead and make wudu. Say, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
It was great.
So the chief of martyrs is who? Is Hamza. And the Prophet said, and anyone who stands in front of an oppressive ruler, and the oppressive ruler commands him to do something, but he forbids, but he says, no, I will not do it. So the oppressive ruler kills him, then this person is, not only he's a shaheed, but he is Sayyid al-Shuhada. He will be the leader, he will be amongst the leaders of the Shuhada for standing up for the truth and not obeying someone oppressive. Also, another thing is praised by righteous Muslims. Praised by righteous Muslims. So what this means is that if someone dies, and they are, according to one hadith, the Prophet ﷺ passed by a funeral and praised the dead person for good things that he did. Others followed and praised him, saying, as far as we know, he loved Allah and His Messenger. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, wajabat, wajabat, wajabat. Meaning granted, granted, granted. And on another occasion, he passed by a funeral and someone condemned the person for bad things that he did. And others followed and condemned him. What a bad person he was indeed in adhering to Allah's deen. So Allah's Messenger ﷺ said, wajabat, wajabat, wajabat. Meaning granted, granted, granted. So Umar radiallahu anh then said, I will sacrifice my father and mother for you. When we passed by a funeral of a person who was praised for good deeds, you said wajabat, granted, granted, granted. And when we passed by a funeral of a person who was blamed for bad deeds, you said wajabat, 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 granted, granted, granted. So the Prophet ﷺ said, a deceased whom you praise till will be granted Jannah, and he whom you condemn will be granted the fire. The angels are Allah's witnesses in heavens, and you, the believers, are Allah's witnesses on earth. You are Allah's witnesses on earth. You are Allah's witnesses on earth. Verily, Allah has angels who speak upon the tongues of the human beings, telling of any good or evil that is in a person. Okay, meaning what does this mean? What this means is that when a person dies and the people generally authentically have good things to say about him, then this is in a favor for him. Okay, that people say, you know what, he was a good man, he used to come to the masjid. He was a good man, he was very sincere and honest in his business dealings, right? So when people say this, and according to one hadith, if two people say good things, which they, and it's supposed to be something that they really saw, right? Because there's a bid'ah, which we will talk about, but they really saw this person in a good way, so they testified in his favor. So the Prophet said, wajabat. He's granted Jannah because of what they're testifying against for him. And at the same time, if someone was a bad person, and people testified in this way, meaning they're talking, they're saying this person was an evil man. He used to do this, he used to do that. If two people say this, right, this person is granted hellfire because of that. So what does this teach us is that if we truly know that the person was good, then we should speak about that. And if we truly know that a person was bad, then we should not speak about that. We should stay quiet. Uzkuru amwatakum bi khayr, think of them in good. But at the same time, there's a bid'ah that the people developed as a result of this, which is that they said, well, anyone who dies, everyone comes and says good things about them, whether they know them or not. Okay, someone who never met him says he was a very righteous man. How do you know he was a righteous man, right? So this is not what is meant, but truly, sincerely, when someone says this, then that is a good deed, good end. So there's another hadith which is the Prophet said that whenever 4 Muslims testify on behalf of a Muslim, Allah will let him into Jannah. And also, by the way, is that another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, if 40 believers pray upon a person, he will be forgiven by Allah. In another hadith, the Prophet said, if 100 believers pray upon a person, he will be forgiven by Allah. And in a third hadith, the Prophet said, if a large group of Muslims pray upon a person, he will be forgiven by Allah. So how do we combine them? How do we understand them all together?
Depend on their situation they were in life.
A lot of people say it's good, it's good. A lot of people
So basically, these are successive ahadith. The first thing the Prophet said was 40. The next thing the Prophet said was 100. And the next thing the Prophet said was a large number. Why? Because as time passes, the iman of the people was getting weaker. So first the Sahaba were so strong that 40 of them would be enough to get someone forgiven, if he was at least a Muslim. Then more new Muslims came, and not all of them were as strong. So the purity of iman went down. So now the Prophet said, if 100 pray, then that is enough to have him forgiven by Allah. And then time passed where it became even weaker. So the Prophet said, if a large group of people pray upon a person, then he is forgiven. And that's why, and some of the scholars they say that the key thing is the believers. Okay? So even if you have 40 true believers who pray upon a person, even in our time, if they're true believers, the person will be forgiven. But basically, we don't really find 40 true believers in our time. So the larger the number you have, the better probability you have of having 40 or 100 believers in there. Right? Everyone is a Muslim, but not everyone is a believer. Everyone is a Muslim, but not everyone is a mu'min. Okay, and that is what is meant here. So that's why when someone dies, hurry to pray their janazah. Attend their janazah, because maybe because of your presence they may be forgiven. And in the same way, if you die, hope that other people will have a culture that say, you know what, we don't know this person, but we're going to go pray the janazah. And that's the thing that I keep complaining about, that we have a problem, that the Pakistanis go to the funeral of the Pakistanis. The Bangladeshis go to the funeral of the Bangladeshis. Right? The Moroccans go to the funeral of the Moroccans. Right? The Egyptians go to the funeral of the Egyptians. The American brothers go to the funerals of the American brothers. But the mix and match is what doesn't happen. Right? Which is that simply because the person is a believer, we should all come out. If we know, and that's why we send out a notification to everyone in the text message that there is a janazah, we should make it a priority. Everyone has work, but not everyone dies every day. And we are not going to die all the time. We're going to die once, and we're going to hope that there's a culture in our community that people come out to pray the janazah, even if they have to skip work or if they have to take some time out in order to come and pray the janazah. That's the least that we should do, right? Because, once again, this thing is that if a lot of believers pray janazah upon a person, then that person will be forgiven as a result of this. Also, someone who dies as a result of a flood, okay? The Prophet ﷺ said, he who dies by drowning is a shaheed as well. He who dies by drowning is a shaheed as well. Also the Prophet said that the shuhada are 5 types. He who dies from a plague, he who dies from an abdominal illness, he who dies by drowning, he who dies under a collapsed building, which is earthquake, and he who is killed fighting in the way of Allah. These are all shuhada. So the Prophet ﷺ also said in another hadith, the shaheeds of my ummah would be, they said that only the people killed in the way of Allah are shuhada. The Prophet said, no, in that case the shuhada would be very little. But the Prophet said, a Muslim being killed in battle is shahada. Dying from plague is a shahada. A woman's death because of the baby in her womb is a shahada. Okay? So any woman who dies as a result of complications during pregnancy or childbirth, she is a shaheed as well. Okay? Sometimes it doesn't have to be right away. Sometimes some women, they give birth and they become sick at this time. Some problem happens and this sickness continues for years. 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and then they die at that. So anyone whose core, the cause of this sickness was the baby, then she is a shaheed. Her baby will pull her with his umbilical cord to Jannah. That's what the Prophet said. Her baby will pull her to Jannah with its umbilical cord. Okay? Also the Prophet ﷺ said in another hadith, in addition to being killed in the way of Allah, shaheeds are 7 types. He who dies from a plague is a shaheed. He who dies from drowning is a shaheed. He who dies from pleurisy is a shaheed. What is pleurisy again? A lung disease where it hurts, it's painful for a person to even breathe. He who dies from an abdominal illness is a shaheed. He who dies from burning is a shaheed. Okay, so anyone who's burned to death is also a shaheed. He who dies under a collapsed building is a shaheed, and a woman who dies with a child in her womb is a shaheeda. So there are many of these cases. Also the Prophet ﷺ said, anyone who dies from tuberculosis is shaheed. And also the Prophet ﷺ said that anyone who is killed defending his deen is a shaheed, and anyone who is killed while defending his blood is a shaheed. So if someone is threatening a family member and a person steps in and he's killed as a result of this dispute that arose, he is also a shaheed. And also the Prophet said, anyone who dies while defending his property is a shaheed. Okay? So also the Prophet ﷺ said, he who is killed while fending an oppression against him is a shaheed. So anyone who is being oppressed. So for example, if a lady who is being oppressed, maybe she's being raped, may Allah protect our sisters, and she fights and she's killed, she is a shaheeda. Okay? So basically the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is great. How many things we talked about? Let's talk about them real quickly. Let's review. Someone who says the shahada as the last thing, this is a good sign, right? Also, anyone who dies with sweat on his forehead is a good sign. The Prophet said that the believer dies with a sweating forehead. Okay? Dying on the night or day of Jummah is a good sign. Martyrdom or shahada on the battlefield is a good sign. Dying while away from home or fighting in Allah's way is a shaheed. Dying from a plague is a shaheed. Dying from an abdominal illness. Dying from drowning. Dying from a building collapsing. A woman's death because of pregnancy or delivery. Dying from burning. Dying from pleurisy. Dying from tuberculosis. Dying while defending one's property. While defending one's family. While defending one's deen. Dying while doing self-defense. If someone is just attacking and a person is defending himself, this is also a good end. Dying while standing as a guard in the way of Allah. Dying while doing a righteous deed. Right? If someone is coming to the masjid and they die, is a shaheed. If someone is going back home from the masjid, he is a shaheed. If someone is going to attend some knowledge, some halaqah of knowledge, he dies, he's a shaheed. Until he comes back, he's a shaheed. Okay? Someone who is going to help a brother and he gets into an accident, he's a shaheed. Right? So all of these are very good ends. Also dying by being killed by an oppressive ruler is a shaheed. And being praised after death by righteous Muslims is another good end. So meaning that if anyone dies, what we should do is that we should go and we should praise that person. Right?
No.
No?
Only if you genuinely.
I think it could say like, I hear the brother was a good man.
Well, not I hear, but actually we talked about it, that this is a bid'ah that people do, which is that someone dies, and because they know this, that the Prophet said that if righteous Muslims say good things about a person, he's forgiven by Allah. So what they do is that although they don't know that person, they'll say good things about him. No, this is a bid'ah. Rather, this applies to someone who actually knows him. Someone who knows him, who's interacted with him, and he says that this was a good person, then this is a person whose testimony matters. Yes.
Or even if you know bad thing about him, don't say it.
And if you know the bad things about them. So the Prophet also said that when people said bad things about a person, the Prophet said what? Wajabat. Wajabat. Granted. 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 3 times. Meaning hellfire is granted because of the bad things that people are saying about him. Right? So someone dies, people say, you know what? This person used to curse a lot. This person used to commit zina. This person used to break up families and friends. He used to go around spreading namima, right? Spreading dangerous information which causes fights, right? Anything that like that people say about him, this person was very bad in his financial matters. He used to borrow money and not pay back, right? So if people say this, then this is witnessed by Allah. And the Prophet ﷺ said that the angels are Allah's witnesses in the heavens. And the humans are Allah's witnesses on earth. And indeed, some angels speak through human beings. Some angels speak through some human beings. Okay? So that's why if it's a good thing that you know about them, then you should mention it. But if it's a bad thing, don't mention it. Stay quiet. maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive him. But if you say it, then the Prophet said, wajabat. It became fixed for him. Yes.
Death penalty by judge as a result of criminal activities.
Yes.
How about that?
Death penalty by a judge as a result of criminal activity. What do you think that is? Yes.
If it's proved, it's the punishment. But Allah, if it's proved, it's punishment.
Actually, it is good.
But
It is actually
killing
good
after that.
as long as it is good as long as this person does not have more crime than the death penalty. Okay? Meaning what? If someone killed a person and he is killed in return, then they are even. Okay? So he's not responsible for it in the day of judgment because he paid his price. Okay? You know what? I'll just tell you this one story as the last story. I've mentioned it before. That this one of my teachers, he mentioned this story. That another sheikh of him, he told him. He said one day in Saudi, he got a call from a funeral director. How many of you have heard this story before? Some of you definitely have. You'll remember it when I tell you. He got a call from a funeral director. He said, Sheikh, sometimes, the funeral director, they call me. We have this issue. It's just like that. So he called the Sheikh. He said, Sheikh, you got to come and help me out. He's like, what do you mean? What's going on? So he said, look, something is happening. Just come over. He said, look, I'm busy. I can't come. Tell me what it is and I'll try to help you. He said, Sheikh, I got this body and I was given the contract to wash him and shroud him and bury him. So I bring him to the freezing room where the washing is, the washing room. I bring him to the washing room and he's in a body bag. So I open his body bag and I went to get dressed. You have to cover up. You can't touch. You're not supposed to touch the body with your hands. Even in Islam, by the way, is that if you give ghusl to someone, then you're recommended to take a shower, but the least is you have to make wudu. Okay, because once a person dies, his body stops working, so his skin is starting to decompose, even though initially you don't see it, but it's happening. So it's very dangerous. It's a pathology. So he said, I went to get dressed to get all these coverall and gloves and masks and this and that. He said, I come back and the floor is filled with worms. And the worms are coming out of this body bag. How many of you have heard this before? You have, right? Yeah. So he said, worms are coming out of the body bag. He said, I got scared. I don't know what to do, Sheikh. You come and help me out. I can't do this. So the Sheikh said, look, I'm busy. But it seems like this person has done something really bad. So just wash him and do as best as you can, cover him up and go and bury him. So he said, okay. So he did, and he went and he washed him as best as he can. He shrouded him. He took him to the cemetery. Then he called the Sheikh again. Sheikh, you gotta come and see us. He's like, look man, I'm busy, I can't come, but tell me I can help you. He said, Sheikh, I brought him to the cemetery. The grave was ready. I lowered him into the grave. I came out to get something because they have these they have to make these mud balls, right? And they make we'll talk about that later, right? They make a lahad and they cover the side. So I came out to get something for that, and now I'm trying to go back into the grave, but I can't go back in. There's an invisible covering on the grave. I can see through, but I can't go back inside. It's like I'm standing on glass which I can't see. I'm standing on glass I can't see. I don't know what to do. I haven't completed his burial yet. He's not. You put him in a hole on the side and then you cover that hole, right? So the Sheikh said, look, this person once again has done something really bad, it seems. And this is the earth saying, look, we got him. Don't worry too much, just cover him up because something else is about to start on him. The delay is what's not needed here. The earth is saying just cover him up. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the angels are saying just cover him up, go. We have something to deal with him, right? So he was shaken and he said he covered the dirt the dirt went in and he covered the grave, but he was still shaken. Anyone would be shaken. So he said, I went back to the office, and the body had come with some papers. So I looked into those papers. I got the name, the address. So I went looking as to who this person was. He said, I went and I found the address. I went to the house. The house was locked. In front of it, there was a store. He said, I went to the store and I asked them, do you know about such and such man? And he mentioned the name of this guy. And as soon as he mentioned his name, the man started cursing at this man. He said, why are you cursing him? What happened? Tell me. He said, this man lived in that house right there. And his neighbor who lived right next to him was or is a police officer who used to work at night. He used to work the night shift as a police officer. And this man, one night he climbed over into his neighbor's house when the husband was gone. And his wife and daughter were there. He raped them and killed them both. And then he ran away. And the police were looking for him all this time to get him. And finally he was caught and he was given the death penalty. He was hung and he was sent to you to wash it. But what we see here is that the sin that he had done was more than one person. And he did not just kill them, but he did other things, which is such a severe thing. On top of that, he did it to his neighbor. Right? So his sin is so severe that the evil signs are starting to show right now. And he's going to be punished severely. So the death penalty is not enough for him. The death penalty is not enough for him. But there are cases of the Sahaba where someone had committed a sin which was punishable by death, and they stoned that person, and a drop of blood came upon someone, and someone said, this dirty blood, get it off me. The Prophet ﷺ said, don't say that. Don't say that. Because this person had committed a sin, and he paid the price for it, and he was repentant to Allah. And if his repentance was spread over all of the people of Medina, it would be sufficient for them. Okay? So meaning, the sin that he did, he paid the price for it. But sometimes, the sin may be more than just one execution. Right? And this is in the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if the person sincerely made tawbah before the time of his death, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy is vast. And He can forgive anyone. Even a person who has committed shirk, Allah will forgive him as long as he makes tawbah sincerely before he dies. But once he dies, Allah will not forgive shirk. Once he dies and he has shirk that he had not made tawbah from, Allah says in the Quran, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَغْفِرُ أَن يُشْرَكَ بِهِ وَيَغْفِرُ مَا دُونَ ذَلِكَ. Allah will not forgive the shirk that is done with him. He will forgive anything else. He might forgive anything else, but the shirk will not be forgiven. لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيَغْفِرُ مَا دُونَ ذَلِكَ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ. That whoever He wishes, He will forgive for them. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us a good end and not a bad end like any of these people. We did not cover the chapter fully, which is the next part is the bad signs, the evil signs of a person's death. And we will talk about that next week, inshallah, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us all, we ask Him sincerely to give us shahada. As the Prophet said, that if someone sincerely asks Allah for shahada, Allah will give him the rank of the martyrs even if he dies in his bed. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us that. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Inshallah, we'll pray in like 2 minutes. Please.